Operation Confidence proudly presents America's Invisible Heroes radio talk show. Tune in weekly on Sundays from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time with your hosts, Consuela Mackey, co-host U.S. Air Force veteran Matt Davidson, announcers Taylor Marcella and Brooke Gadesi, U.S. Army veteran and entertainment host Charles Whitehead, U.S. Army Special Forces veteran and I Once Was Whole segment host Richard Cook, U.S. Army veteran and Lifeline for Women's Veterans segment host Martha Elena Varela, National Faith Program Director and Veterans in Recovery segment host Anthony Akimpora, and U.S. Air Force veteran and Incarceration to Success segment host Kevin Lewandowski. For more information or to be a guest on our show, email info@operationconfidence.org.
Operation Confidence is a grassroots nonprofit. The organization's mission is to provide stable housing for veterans who have experienced homelessness, as well as providing a wide range of supportive services. To help accomplish our goal, a successful landowner has donated land for the project, a world-renowned architect has offered to design the houses, and construction classes from the local community colleges will take part in building the houses. Your support and donations are needed. To get involved, please visit our website at www.operationconfidence.org or email info@operationconfidence.com.
Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Americans Invisible Heroes, a show dedicated to our veterans and their families. Yes, I'm your host, Consuela Mackey, Executive Director of a grassroots nonprofit organization called Operation Confidence. No, I'm not a veteran, but my heart goes out to our American heroes, especially veterans with disabilities and who have experienced homelessness. For those who are new to the show, American Invisible Heroes was established to provide a platform for our veterans to be able to share heartfelt stories, resources, challenges, and accomplishments. Now, allow me to introduce our fabulous co-hosts. We have Matt Davidson, U.S. Air Force veteran, board member, and a co-host. Charles Whitehead, U.S. Army Reserve veteran, board member, and also co-host. Brooke Gadesi, she's a board member and one of our announcers. U.S. Army veteran Martha Varela, she's on our advisory board. She has a weekly segment called Lifeline for Women Veterans. U.S. Army veteran Dr. Kathy Cash, she has a bi-monthly segment called Strategies for Hope. And we have returning segment host Ann Montague. She has a bi-monthly segment called the Rosie's Movement. Say hello to everybody. Welcome.
Hello, hello, hello.
Take it away, Matt.
Okay. I found the following opinion piece on the U.S. Veteran Compensation Program website written by Aisha Randall. Congress is being asked to compensate our grossly underpaid disabled veterans fairly this year. This must be corrected by appropriate legislation now. In 2022, a totally disabled veteran with no dependents is compensated at the ridiculous rate of $39,984.72 annually. The National Average Wage Index for 2020 was $55,628.60 per year, and the median income for 2020 was $67,521. The per capita GDP in 2020 was $63,416, among the highest in the world. This low rate of compensation to disabled veterans is both deliberate and cruel. Disabled veterans are only compensated for projected lost wages, not to include a loss of quality of life payment. This is an antiquated approach to injury compensation and has not been used in courts awarding personal injury compensation, for at least 2 generations. This is done specifically to keep taxes low on our elites who pay next to nothing in federal taxes every year. And there's a national security aspect to this travesty of justice. Once our youth realize that serious injury or sickness received in the armed forces will mean a lifetime of near poverty due to artificially low compensation as disabled veterans, the armed forces will collapse. We are on the cusp of this right now. A young person would have to be unbalanced to accept this social contract as reasonable between an enlistee and the government. No clear thinking young person would agree to this lopsided arrangement. Act now, time is short.
Wow, that is amazing. Why? I mean, that's horrible. Yeah.
It's wrong, but we can address it through our Congress people and senators.
Contact our senators and Congress people.
Matt,
Yeah, we can write to them and we can call them and express some outrage about this.
do you have a form letter, Matt, that we can send out separately?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you have a form letter? Do you have a letter for us to sign that comes for?
No, I don't have a form letter. I would refer you to the website of U.S. Veteran Compensation Program and see if you can't get that article on compensation for disabled veterans.
Okay.
Well, and Matt, thank you for bringing that up because I did read recently too that that's supposed to change. That there was, and I'll see if I can find that article, I think about a week ago, where there's some new legislation that's been written as recent as like the last 2 to 3 weeks, where they're going to lift some of those ridiculous, benchmarks or whatever they call it, to where they determine you're eligible, you're not eligible, you get denied, you have to appeal. So I'll see if I can find that, but thank you for sharing that, because I think if there are some changes being made, maybe we can draft a formal letter of some kind. We get the Rosies on board to sign, and even if we have to make up our own petition of some sort to get going, I think this would be a great time to jump in for the cause.
I agree with you, and I would recommend too to sign into the U.S. Veteran Compensation Program website, because they always have really good information on there.
Do you know the website address?
No, I would have to.
Maybe
what's it called, Matt?
Check it out.
U.S. Veteran.
It's U.S. Veteran Compensation Program.
Probably on USVA.gov, maybe. It could be.
I do know that there's another website called hadit.com, as in had it with the VA.com, and it's a forum where a lot of veterans go to help each other with disability compensation. So everything from forms and narratives, there's a chat where, people, and it was a Marine vet who gave it to me, who gave me this website. So it's hadit.com, I believe it is. I'll have to double check before the end of the show. You found it?
That's good. Great. Good information.
But yeah, and we'll have to follow up on this one, because I think this is a cool opportunity for us to kind of bridge the gap.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we all need to sign on to that. That's extremely informative. Okay, take it away, Martha.
All righty. This week we're going to be talking about Latina women participation in the military. According to the Department of Defense, women now make up 20% of the Air Force, 19% of the Navy, 15% of the Army, and almost 9% of the Marines, according to DOD March 11th of 2019. Throughout U.S. history, Latinas have served proudly and bravely in all branches of our nation's military. 5 years after the Gulf War, Hispanic women comprised approximately 6% of enlisted women in the military and 3% of female officers. Wow, such a low amount. Okay. Today, answers a lot of questions for me. Sorry. Today, Hispanic women are serving throughout the armed forces and breaking traditional barriers. The National Association of American Veterans states that more Latinas are serving in the Army than Latino men. Interesting, according to the U.S. Army. In 2015, a profile of the military community revealed that Latinas cover 48% of the women in the U.S. military and make up almost half of the women, as written by a Mexican-American blogger whose name was Dulce Candy, who also served as a soldier in Iraq, November 9th, 2018. Senior Airman Staff Select Paulette Rivera at the Air Force Memorial, Washington, D.C., writes a small story. When she was researching to write this story, she was very surprised and a bit curious. She decided to call Paulette Rivera, Senior Airman Staff Select in the U.S. Air Force, and ask her why Latina women are joining the military in such record numbers. She answered my question very candidly. I had several reasons why I joined the Air Force. I wanted to become independent, self-sufficient, and live away from home. I wanted to continue my education. I did not want to be average. I wanted to travel, and I wanted to do something bigger than myself and do something that had a purpose and help a cause. Joining the U.S. Air Force had provided her the opportunity to do all those things. On another note, the Latino Civil Rights Group, there is a Latino Civil Rights Group that's calling for young Latina women not to enlist in the military. So as we heard Matt kind of talk a little bit about what happens after your time of service is over and the difficulties that too many veterans face if there's any sort of disability or injury, right? So there's another focal point to this article, which, I just read. We're talking about what are the reasons, unfortunately, that Latina women should not maybe enlist, other than what we heard Matt talk about earlier. The president of a Latino civil rights group is calling for young Latina women to refuse to join the military until the armed forces guarantee their safety from rape and sexual assault. The announcement from the League of United Latin American Citizens, or LULAC, President Domingo Garcia, comes after investigators found the body of specialist Vanessa Guillen, who we heard the tragedy about just a few years ago outside of Fort Hood in Texas, who vanished after reporting that she had been sexually harassed by a fellow soldier. I think there's a good old boy network in the military, Garcia said. They cover up when someone allegedly gets raped. Guillen's family said she told them she was being sexually harassed at Fort Hood, again in Texas. After she disappeared, her dismembered body was found in a shallow grave. The man Guillen accused in the case himself killed himself after police came to talk to him. LULAC said it had been fighting for answers from Fort Hood for weeks after Guillen disappeared. Military leaders had said that they found no evidence of sexual harassment or abuse against Guillen. Look, the military code book is not being adhered to, Garcia said. NBC Bay Area spoke to the Pentagon and requested for comment. While the Pentagon promised to respond, at that time, there wasn't any answers. We know that as recently, there has been some movement forward, which we're very thankful for. So moving forward, as you guys kind of remember hearing that awful story, they also found the bodies of 5 other soldiers outside of Fort Hood. So it paints to, men and women who were killed, and buried in these shallow graves. So there was really kind of a bigger picture being painted here. But in terms of any sort of reporting of sexual harassment, sexual assault, there will be now an outside entity that will be the first point of contact. So kind of conducting any sort of investigation, review of information outside of the military. And it'll be comprised of, different people who, are interested and invested in kind of moving this forward. As we've seen for years, this kind of stuff gets swept under the rug. But this case in particular really started to chip away at some of that culture that we hear being described. And I'd really like to segue into inviting back Sylvia, one of our guests who had talked to me recently about, her leadership being cut short. Much like me, I joined the military at the bright young age of 17 years old to pursue leadership opportunities, right? Like we heard the article say, show our parents that we have a lot of, we want that independence and we have those leadership capabilities. But unfortunately, for many and too many, that reality is there, that leadership gets cut short. There may be some sort of trauma that's experienced, from the duty itself, right? It's a very hectic 6 weeks, 8 weeks of training or what have you, depending upon, what branch of service and where you go. So it's definitely a conversation that needs to be continued. And thank you, Connie, for bringing up these 2 points of view, because as we heard Matt say, we really got to start looking at some of the things that we need to improve on. And this is definitely one of those areas.
Right. So important. You
Yeah.
have a guest on today.
Oh.
What, you saying something, Charles?
I'm gonna say, the problem with the military is like you have a chain of command that you're supposed to go up. If you get to that first person that's in charge of you and they say nothing moving, then that's it. Everything dies right there. It doesn't go up to, because that person can be corrupt and be part of, and that's the problem with it. It's like, people say, oh, the police investigate themselves. If you have a body that's investigating yourselves, you're going to be biased to it automatically. So, I'm just not talking about police, but any line of command. And the military is notorious for that kind of stuff.
Martha, I'm
Yes.
curious, in the list of reasons that Latino women join the military.
Speak a little louder, Ann.
I can't, and my voice is going.
Can you turn your speaker up?
I'm not sure. We'll try. Can you hear me?
Better.
My phone's ringing. I want to know if training is in that list that you named, Martha. 30 years ago, the major reason people gave for joining the military was to be trained, but I didn't hear the word training in there. They're not joining anymore because they want to be trained or not?
So it said education was kind of like the first thing. And I think for many of those, first, second, third generation, that pathway to education is huge. And the military provides that gateway, right? They've got the GI Bill and, some of the signing bonuses. I know personally for me, if you hit kind of something on the head in terms of that training, that's another thing that I think the military doesn't do the best job on, kind of encouraging people to join the right, programs or kind of get the right training. Because for me, I became a medic, but there really wasn't like a pathway to a career after I got out. I would have to go all the way back to paramedic school and start over. So it was kind of like, why would I have, picked that career choice or that training if it wouldn't have landed me a job successfully after I got out? And I did. I tried to go down couple paths and it didn't land into anything, but that is something that they should focus a little more attention on, I think, because it could be a more lucrative thing for everybody joining. So if I had to do it all over again, I would have went to the nursing program. Then when I got out, I would have a nursing degree and then could decide if I wanted to go to the RN or to the LPN, because there was so many things we could do inside of the military. Under the military training, give shots, draw blood. I was a combat medic. But when you come back, you don't get to do none of that. You got to go all the way back to school.
Yeah.
So I think for some, that education, and that's why for me, after I did my 6 years of service, I said, I'm going back to school, because originally that's what I had wanted to do. And I couldn't get into the officer training, as we heard, less than 3% in the country, which makes sense. Why there isn't any, they don't want any women to be in leadership roles, but we hear that as some of the reasons why women get out, that leadership was clipped short and, pursue other opportunities, raising families, having children, right? And women just sort of fade to the back and kind of keep on living life.
I want to
You want to
comment
introduce your
on
guest?
that Bill,
We're running down out of time now.
Consuela,
Hmm?
Bill does not have the Zoom link. He somehow has lost that. Do you have his email address? Can you send it? If not, I'll leave.
No,
and-
I don't have it, and I
Okay,
couldn't interrupt the
I'll
show
leave
right
and
now.
come back in then. Thank you.
Okay.
Let
All
me
right.
see.
Thank you,
Introduce
Ann.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll introduce my guest today. And kind of on the same token, it's kind of interesting. My guest today is Anita Graves. Anita and I worked together to house veterans back in 2019, 2020, when I spent some time with the National Veterans Foundation. So, you know, it was kind of interesting. We heard a couple of weeks ago, right, some of those things around the housing, right? And as we're kind of moving forward in our tiny homes project, it's kind of nice that we've had some guests that can share a little bit about what their experiences were helping house veterans. So Anita is no stranger to the housing industry. She has worked in a couple different capacities with some nonprofits around their housing projects. She's also spent a lot of time as a property manager and currently works alongside of me at LA Family Housing as one of the housing navigation specialists there. So Miss Anita Graves, welcome to the
Yay.
show today.
We welcome you, girlfriend, and thank you so much for coming on our team
There
too.
she is. Hi.
Tell us a little bit about you.
My name is Anita. I've been in the property management field for over 13 years, and I just have a heart to help people, and it's an honor to be here, to be a part of this organization.
Thank you. And your background, your mic is a little low.
Oh, because I don't have headphones. My husband's working in the background, and the generator is going, so I don't want to be. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so my background, I have worked with the veterans, and I have actually housed a couple of them, and the experience, I feel that the social services in those departments are not really helpful, and I just think that the things that you guys are bringing to the table are going to be excellent, just to have those services there to support them at the time of need. I could give a perfect example. I had a vet that moved into a permanent housing, and she was left there, and the social worker just left her, and I had to help her with the panic attack, and just brought back just bad memories for her. So I had to assist her and calm her down. And I'm grateful that I have that compassion just for human beings, and let alone a vet that has been through a struggle. So I'm just grateful to be a part of this, and just to hear that there's an organization that's out there to help and touch people and make sure they get a house.
Thank you so much.
I'm a crybaby, and I'm gonna drop the mic down because I'll probably have
That's what
everybody
makes you
crying.
special.
But I appreciate this opportunity.
Oh, you're so sweet. We look forward to you coming back and sharing some of your stories about some of the phenomenal things that you've done too. It's don't cry. You're so precious.
I will.
Nothing wrong with passion.
No, I
Yeah.
love it. That's what we're all about, is passion. Trying to
She's
make
gonna
a
make me
difference for
cry.
our vets. You know? So, oh, you cry too?
No,
Oh,
she's gonna make me cry. I get to work with this beautiful person.
oh, that's so sweet.
No, I can definitely attest to the not just the passion that she has to help the homeless and homeless veterans, but she's kind of not telling the full story, but her, the capacity that she has to really push things forward. So Anita and I were talking recently about how, that housing process in itself for some veterans can take way too long, right? So the veteran that she spoke briefly about, the female veteran, it took her a year to get housed. It was horrible. And I held her hand every step of the way until I could hand her over to Miss Graves, who worked at the time at the Ybarra Village in South LA. And meanwhile, at the same time, we had a male veteran who had just been released from incarceration. But for him, thank God, it only took 3 months. So we were kind of scratching our heads that, like, here were two veterans going through the same program and two very different outcomes, right? So for him, we didn't need to do as much of the advocacy on the back end, right? We did it in the beginning. Anita was very equipped with getting his paperwork and the knowledge and experience that she has working in the housing systems, really I could see sped up the process, where for the female who didn't enter in the housing at the point where we met Anita for the male veteran, two very different outcomes. So it's also what drives me to do this work, because I see when done correctly and with two very compassionate and caring individuals that you see here before you, we could get someone housed as quickly as 3 months if we do it right. So it gives us.
Thank God you're on Operation Confidence team. I can't thank you enough, because from the opening of the show, you know what we're doing. We're going to get those houses for our veterans. Thank you so much. We got to move right on. Charles, can you introduce Dr. Kathy Cash, U.S. Army veteran?
I can. Again, I say it's, they're having a reggae fest over here at the convention. So, you got to hear it. Anyway, all right. Anyway, Dr. Kathy Cash, she's a U.S. Army veteran, is the CEO of Strategies for Hope, certified RAP facilitator, that's WRAP, certified peer support specialist, vet to vet facilitator, and a Baptist minister, currently living in Southern California area. Her calling is one of service and passion to support others in becoming their best self. Through the share of her life experiences, she is able to encourage, support, and inspire others, especially women, on their personal roads to recovery. Upon developing her own wellness recovery and action plan, RAP, she's a rapper, she gained a powerful tool to help by her own best self to the road to recovery. Using RAP and the recovery concept, Dr. Cash has facilitated veterans, groups, and faith-based groups, as well as present various topics of wellness in conferences and workshops throughout the city. Take it away, Dr. Cash.
All right. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Charles. And I just want to say really quick, Martha and Anita, my hands up to you. It's awesome, because we have seen, Martha, as a woman veteran, I heard your story. It is so hard for the women to get the same opportunities that are out there for the men. Even going through training in the military, I was passed over for leadership school and just different things like that, just because we're women. So hats off to you for helping the women who have gone through the military and are now in the civilian world, trying to continue to make it happen. Because it's all about making sure that we're well and keeping each other together. And Anita, you didn't serve, but you are serving now.
Yes,
so
she is.
Hats off to you.
Both of them are.
All
Thank
right.
you, Dr.
Those are my baby girls.
So I have a guest today. My guest today is Nicholas Cormier III. He is a veteran of the United States Army. I'm sorry, he missed out. He's a veteran of the United States Air Force.
Right.
And he spent several years as an air traffic controller. He graduated from the University of Texas at Arlington, where he studied art with a concentration in film and a minor in theater. He holds a master's degree in business administration from Texas State University. He is an actor, a writer, director. He owns Runner Films, which is a film and video production company. Now, he volunteers for veteran-centric service organizations and regularly advocates for mentally ill veterans, including those with substance abuse issues that are living on the streets of Los Angeles. Nicholas is the homeless liaison on the Community Veterans Engagement Board and serves on the Veterans Patient Advocacy Council for the Greater Los Angeles VA in Brentwood, California. He is also a USC Warrior Board and longtime member of the renowned UCLA Word Commandos Creative Writing Workshop for Veterans. He has flash fiction and short stories that have been accepted for publication by various entities. And I would like to present to you Nicholas Cormier III.
All right, welcome, sir. Yay.
Thank you.
So Nicholas, I'd like for you to share what happened with you after you came out of the military. How was your life after the military?
My life after the military was, was a little bit challenging. I got married. I got married to my daughter's mother and just started to embark on life. I didn't yet have any of those degrees that you mentioned. So I went to school right away. It was in a different time. So there wasn't a TAPS program that I knew of or anything to help facilitate that transition. I just got out, figured I served my country, and I didn't want anything. I didn't go after anything except to go to school and utilize the GI Bill. And so that's what I did for several years. What I found over time was those experiences in the military were sticking with me, and I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know what was happening. And it took about 20 years for a lot of that to resurface, and eventually led me to, a place of being homeless and on the streets of Los Angeles.
Wow. How long were you homeless?
I was homeless for, say, from 2017 to 2019.
Wow.
Okay.
Right out there on what part of Los Angeles? Because we have colleagues that would have to wind up on Skid Row.
I didn't make it to Skid Row. I was on the Ocean Avenue in Santa Monica. I was in Burbank. I was in the Valley initially
Okay.
for a while. And then I
Mhm.
moved out toward the beach. I never made it to Skid Row.
Yeah, that's a hard place to deal
Yeah.
with.
You picked the right place to be homeless then, I guess, huh?
Well, somehow something told me I was in the valley. It was hot, and I kept being disturbed by the police because I was sleeping on the sidewalks in Seaman. I didn't know anything about being homeless. I had come from living in a luxury apartment in Toluca Lake, so I didn't know anything about what was going on, and I had to learn on the fly. And it wasn't until I got to Ocean Avenue in Santa Monica that I was taught what homelessness was, where to go get a shower, how to go about finding a meal, how to, thankfully there was, unfortunately, but for my benefit, there was a large homeless population that knew the ropes and was willing to share that with me. Where to go get a blanket, go to Salvation Army, get my blanket, get my P38 can opener. And every day was like, it ended up being another master's program, but it was in life on the streets, really.
And how did you make your way to the VA for VA services?
Well, the whole time I was on Ocean Avenue, I had heard about a federal building. I had been there before. I was married before, and I remember going to get some kind of agreement or something for my wife was a foreigner. So we had to go to the federal building. So I knew there was a federal building, and I thought that was the VA. And my goal was to get from there to the VA, but I had no idea where it was. And I had no idea how to get there. And I mean, I share this sometimes that it's like a world away from me. Getting to the VA from Ocean Avenue and where I was like a different world. Even though it was only X amount of blocks, it might as well have been in another country. And so once again, fortunately, I heard I said a prayer, which I was tired. I was just beat up. And I was looking for cigarette butts out on the street, and I said a prayer. I was just trying to go to a hostel, get a place to stay, but I didn't have any money. My EBT card was empty, and I really didn't know how to keep it going. Now I know you have to recertify essentially every 3 months or anything, but I didn't know any of this at the time. So it was empty, and I couldn't get into that hostel. And I saw a Mercedes drive by, and I kicked it. And the guy got out, and we got into a scuffle, and I ended up going into jail. So that's really how I got a roof over my head. Was I got picked up by the Santa Monica Police Department.
Kicking the man's car?
I kicked his car. He got out. He happened to be the battalion chief of Santa Monica Fire. So I spent quite a bit of time in jail.
Oh no! What a car to kick.
But you did that so you could get in and get a meal in a warm place, right?
And I wasn't alone in that. I found that there was a whole number of homeless people, especially in the months. I was picked up November 1st. So it was starting to get cold. I actually run with Skid Row Running Club, and we were running in the morning. My hands were freezing in the morning yesterday. So that's kind of how it is out there. It gets cold, and a lot of people end up going into the Twin Towers around that time. For me, it was just a roundabout kind of way, but that's actually something that people who are desperate do, which is I'm going to go spend these cold months in jail with a roof over my head, 3 meals a day, not great meals, but there was the Veteran Justice Outreach was there, and they told me a story of hope. The Veteran Justice Outreach are like angels to me, because they were telling me about a VA in West LA, and there was a potential that I could get there. And they were telling me about a Veterans Collaboratives Court that could help me. And that was the only hope I had, because the charges were so egregious and trumped up that I was facing. Essentially, initially my parents told me 40 years in prison for that.
Taking the car?
Yeah, for that fight. And I was, hyper vigilant that entire day, but everything that happened on November 1st, essentially was like approximately 40 years. My parents told me, ended up being probably roughly around 28 years, but that's hanging over my head. And the VJOs are telling me a much different story. And they're telling me that there is hope, there is a VA, and all we need, and there are benefits waiting for you. And all we need you to do is get to us and get to that collaborative court. And so that was my hope, was to get there. And inexplicably, I waited about 10 months, and finally at the 11th hour, I was allowed in the Veterans Collaborative Court, which brought me to the West LA VA. And that's where I started to receive, help with housing. And I was denied housing several times. So because of my education level, it was seen, and I hadn't been homeless quite, because I went into jail. It was counted that you were in jail, so technically you were housed. So it didn't count as actually being on the street for that year or 2 years or whatever they're looking for to get you that immediate housing. So it worked against me in that way. So my VASH was denied 2 times. The appeal was denied, the initial was denied, and they said, well, you can go to work. I said, well, how am I going to get to work from where I am? I'm homeless. I'm on the streets. Luckily, there was a peer support specialist like Dr. Cash, David Goody, who's no longer a peer support specialist, but he kept going forward and taking my appeal forward. And finally, someone said, okay, and granted me VASH. And in the middle of that grueling process, Dr. Cash met up with me when I was hopeless pretty much and thinking there was no way for me to get housing. Dr. Cash met me and encouraged me, gave me hope that there was an opportunity for me to get housing if I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And she was right. Thank you so much, Dr. Cash.
Yeah, she's one of our angels.
And see, can I just interject here? And see, this is the thing that like really upsets me. That you guys hear him say, for veterans that they get rejected for like stupid, like the definition of homeless is spending 1 day in your car. Anita and I just got into it with another service provider who was trying to deny another family, right? Anita, she said, oh, she's not homeless enough. That's such crap. And this is, and if it's not for the advocates, right? And I say the angels, like you said, like Dr. Cash, going to bat for you, right? The real definition is you either can be homeless for a consecutive year straight, or a combination of 3 or more times in the last, 3 to 4 years. So I'm sorry, I just had to interject and say that, because this is what I used to hear. And it was heartbreaking, because for someone who needs the services at that moment, how dare you deny them when they're there and available? And if not HUD VASH, then automatically you're eligible for the SSVF program and the HVRP program and the other. So there's all of these other programs. And it's interesting that you said it took 20 years later for you to connect, and you were from LA, where we have veterans in other parts of the country who, same thing like me. I had no idea what any of these programs were, and that they had been available this whole time, which is why we're so passionate about what we do here, because it's time that this is, to get rid of this blockage and sort of not knowing and lack of communication, because there's so many people who can utilize these services all along the way. And so thank you for sharing your story.
Yes, and definitely what ends up happening is people aren't told the other things that they can do. Say, okay, you're denied VASH, as you said, Martha, or there's SSVF, there's HHV, there's all these other programs, there are other things you can do, but when you go to someone, if you don't ask the right questions, and this is what I find that the veterans come and say to me when I'll ask them, well, why didn't they tell you this? Well, I don't know. If they don't ask the right questions,
Right.
they don't get the answer that will resolve their issue. So lastly, Nicholas, because of everything you went through, you are now an advocate for homelessness, for homeless veterans. So how do you do that? How do you advocate for homeless veterans now? As you're paying it forward, because that's how I see it. You're paying it forward.
That's a continuing process. Part of it is showing up here and sharing my story. Part of it's been, I'm in entertainment. I'm a writer. A lot of times I'm being interviewed about that. I had a choice to make early on whether or not to be ashamed of it, whether or not to not be forthcoming with my experience. And I just felt like there was no room for that. I felt like I needed to be honest, because if it could happen to someone like me, then it can happen to anyone. And I think that's important to put out there, because there's so much stigma that goes along with homelessness and mental health and a lot of the things that veterans just deal with on a daily basis that, so I advocate in that way, which is sharing my story, but also accepting roles like the homeless liaison at the West LA VA. And as you know, if you've driven by, there's tiny shelters. They're being called out there now. There's tents out there. The veterans have moved inside from the outside wall of San Vicente. So there's been a lot of progress there. I can't take credit for that, but what I can say is I've been there, and those have been touch points of mine, particularly during the pandemic. When these things were starting to grow, and before you see what you see now, what's going on, you had a lot of veterans that just needed hope or needed things. I know that Dr. Cash does this amazing thing where she provides lunches and everything else, but I've worked with Dr. Cash and brought meals out to those veterans out there as well on those days. In those days, they didn't have anyone there. They needed those meals. So it's just asking what's needed. Flashlights sometimes. A lot of times it's dark at night on the street, so there's a need for flashlights. There's right now I was told there's a need for blankets and jogging pants for the veterans. So if anybody knows of anything like that, the veterans that are moving into the tiny shelters, blankets would be of help, and so would jogging pants be of help as well.
Well, we're gonna have to do something about that.
So much, Nicholas.
And Nicholas, your story is just so compelling. I mean, you have no idea how you touched all of our hearts and our listeners as well. So you keep up the good work, and you're doing a lot now as far as your writing. You say you're an actor, you're a publicist, and all that other good stuff, right?
Yes.
Has anything been with on Amazon or anywhere like that?
Not yet. I'm working on a collection, and I'm working on a novella. And part of that is that novella that may become a novel is inspired by some of the situations I explained, like that time in the Twin Towers. There's a lot that opened my eyes to the criminal justice system in Los Angeles by that experience. So, and even with being on the streets. So it ends up being something that I'm grateful for having experienced. While I was going through it, did not feel like that. But to see that there's life on the other side of it, and to see that it's not all for naught, that it's for a purpose, is a really great gift. So I use my writing with that.
We got to have you to come back, Dr. Cash. Please have him to come back and share some of his stories.
Most definitely.
We'd love you to be a part of our team, and
we need to get him in on our advisory council.
Oh, heck yeah, we need to have you on our council. We want to share. Dr. Cash would give us your email address so we can bring you up to date on what we're doing for our veterans, and hopefully to get you involved, because I know she's involved, and we want to make sure that people such as yourself are helping us. We got a huge project going. We need all the help we can get. I like to share my story with you as well one day soon.
Hey, Nicholas, you
have to move. Excuse me?
I'm gonna just ask you real quick. You're a movie maker, right?
I'm a filmmaker also, yes.
No, I'm a filmmaker as well, and I have a few commercial ideas. So I'm a songwriter, and I have ideas for some commercials. Maybe we can get together and talk about, because commercials are 30 seconds or whatever. I have some ideas that I need to get with someone. I have the access to a studio and all of that stuff, but maybe we can talk.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That'd be wonderful. Okay. We're going to move right along here now. Brooke, we're going to ask you to share your information a little later because Matt has to leave. And I wanted him to be able to share his story, especially about the 4 chaplains, because we're honored to have Bill Kamer here as guest of Ann. Are you going to show yourself, sir? I would like for you to know that Matt had received an award from the 4 chaplains. Huh, Matt?
That's right. That goes back to 2003. And I was invited by the Vietnam Veterans of America to come to their national convention in St. Louis. And where somebody from the Chapel of 4 Chaplains would be presenting me with an honorarium award for my work with homeless and incarcerated veterans. And it was an incredible honor just to be asked. I couldn't imagine being asked to come to such an event as this and receiving such an award as this. But I went, and it was a wonderful experience. And again, being associated in any way with the Chapel of 4 Chaplains is an incredible honor.
Oh, yes, it is. And, Bill, can you share a little bit about what you do for the 4 chaplains? I think you're way up there in the high ranks there.
Yeah. I'm the executive director for the Chapel of 4 Chaplains. I spent 30 years in the Army Chaplain Corps as a chaplain assistant. So I wasn't an ordained minister. I was on the enlisted side, and we supported the chaplains. So we did everything but the preaching, and we did some counseling, but most of the counseling and preaching were the chaplains. We did everything else. So when I retired in October 2018, I started as the director. So there's a foundation. It's based out of Philadelphia, and it was based on that 4 chaplain story. I don't know if you have enough time. You want me to give a 2-minute 4 chaplain story?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So actually on February 3rd, we just had our banquet. It was our 54th annual banquet in which we honored some people with our Legion of Honor Award. So the story actually takes place on February 3rd, but 1943. So it was, the foundation was built on the story of 4 chaplains going off to war in World War II, and they were handpicked by the Chief of Chaplain's office. They wanted to have an interfaith group of chaplains to go to Greenland. There was 3,000 soldiers in Greenland building an air base for about 18 months before the invasion in Europe, and they're building an air base and weather stations. So they're sending soldiers there to basically build these structures. So they put together a team of a rabbi, Alexander Good. He was coming out of York, Pennsylvania. They had a Catholic priest, John Washington, out of Kearney, New Jersey. And then they had 2 Protestants. One was Chaplain Poling, came out of Schenectady, New York. And then Chaplain Fox came out of Vermont. And Fox was kind of the outlier. He was old for a soldier, came in at 42. He was already a World War I hero. He won a Silver Star, Purple Heart in World War I as a Marine. But when he came out, he decided he wanted to get into the ministry. So we always say in the Chaplain Corps, the chaplains are called to serve. And these guys were definitely called to serve. They met at Harvard University. That's what the chapel school. And back then, there was a 6-week crash course. Here's how you wear a uniform, keep your head down, and they sent them off to war. So chaplains are non-combatants. So they go into battle, we always say, with their Bible in their hand. And that's what these guys did. But they get on this ship. It's called the USAT Dorchester. Dorchester is a troop carrier, and they're going to leave Staten Island on February 23rd, 1943, headed to Greenland. 902 people aboard. The majority of them were new recruits that were basically going to Greenland to be labor to help build this air base. Unfortunately, they don't make it. 11 days into the journey, they get torpedoed. They're just hours away from getting to safety. So at 12:55 a.m. in the morning, they get torpedoed. And the story, that's where the story really kind of galvanized itself around this calling. I mean, the chaplains were pretty well known on the ship because they went around and people noticed how well they got along. And, you know, a rabbi got along with the priest, got along with the Protestants, and they supported each other. And that was rare. You know, a lot of, you know, soldiers, a lot of you guys served, and women served, and, you know, you come from all over the United States. And I mean, there are accounts where people have never met a Jewish person before, and here's this rabbi trying to hold services on Friday night. And so, but they famously got along. When the ship gets torpedoed, it's going to sink in less than 30 minutes. And I use that example that, you know, when you're doing things in life, you can have a job, you can have a calling. These guys knew exactly who they were, what they were supposed to do at that moment in time. I mean, there's no time to contemplate it because you got less than 30 minutes. And they move to the top of the deck. They hand out all the life jackets. And at the end, they all simultaneously take off their life jackets and give it to the last 4 soldiers on board, basically force them off the ship. They didn't want to take them. They put them on them and shoved them into the water. And then these guys hung the rail and hung onto each other. And they prayed for those that had already perished, and then praying for those they hope would be saved. And it was the largest loss of life for a troop carrier during World War II. The 902 aboard, 672 lost their lives, but 230 were saved. So it was, and a lot of them credited because what the chaplains did. They did an after action report, the chief of chaplain's office, because they wanted to give them Medal of Honor. And after they interviewed the 230, there was enough accounts of people that when they exited the ship saw the chaplains, and some their accounts were even, they should have only lasted 20, 30 minutes in the water. I mean, it was 34 degrees, you know, and air temperatures, you know, 36, and they should all die of hypothermia. Some were in the water for 8 hours. And a lot of them is because of what they saw what the chaplains did, and they just weren't going to give up until they couldn't go anymore. And there's another interesting part of that story. We kind of call it almost the 5th chaplain. So they prayed for hope, and hope started with a young man called Charles W. David Jr. He was a Coast Guard service member. He was actually a steward's mate. So back in 1943, if you were in the Coast Guard and you were a Black Coast Guard member, the only position you could hold was in the kitchen. I mean, you could be a cook and you could be a servant, you know, serve food, but that was it, you know. And here's this young steward mate goes to the captain and says, you know, I'll help rescue people. So as this Coast Guard cutter circles back to start rescuing people, they couldn't stop because they're afraid they're going to get torpedoed. And this young man hung onto the rope and scooped people out of the water for hours on end, and saved, they think, maybe up to 25 individuals. And he survives the initial contact with saving people. When he gets to Greenland, he gets pneumonia and passes away about a month later. And it was really neat. I met his family on a Zoom call, and even to this day, generations past, they give credit to this uncle that, you know, his actions. And they actually got visited by some of these survivors at one point. And the one family member said, he brought all his grandkids and said, you know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Charles W. David and what he did that day. So we often work him into our story. So the 4 Chaplains Foundation, why it existed, one of the chaplains, Chaplain Poling, who died on the Dorchester, his dad was a pretty famous minister in Philadelphia, Daniel Poling. And at that time, Grace Baptist Church on the campus of Temple University was the largest church in the United States. They had over 15,000 people going through there in a weekend. And you think about this, almost as miraculous as the story. You had 10 Jewish businessmen go to a Baptist church and a Baptist preacher and convince them they want to put an interfaith chapel in their basement that would have an altar that would rotate between a Protestant, Catholic, and Jewish service. And the Baptists, you guys are going to like this, you know, and they were able to do it. You know, they raised over $400,000 in 1951, 8 years after the disaster, and they built this chapel, and it stayed on the campus at Temple University for about 30 years. When that building needed to be renovated and the Baptist church moved off campus, we relocated we're on the Navy Yard now in Philadelphia, in an old 1942 Navy chapel. But our mission has always been the same: to promote selfless service and interfaith cooperation. And
that's an amazing story. I mean, my goodness. So now we know where the 4 chaplains came from.
Yeah, so
or the 5th one, actually.
and that awards program is our #1 program, and we're proud of
Matt.
important people, and we kind of act like a clearinghouse for different nonprofits. We try to bring nonprofits together. We try to share information. Homelessness is a big deal, at least for me. My brother was a Vietnam vet. He was homeless until he passed away in a VA hospital at the age of 51. He, all the struggles of, everybody else that lived on the street. I remember him telling me there's stages of being homeless. He says you reach a certain stage. When he was in his late 40s and 50s, he says at that stage you become more of the victim. He says a good chance I'll die in the streets when I get that age, because you're older and people look at you at that point as being past saving, and unfortunately for him that was the outcome. But he taught me a lot about that, and I think I was a very soft spot in my heart for helping anybody that's in that situation. So it's great that we went out there in California. So
I want to thank you so much, Bill. That was an amazing story, and I can't thank you enough for coming back on the show. Matt, I'm quite sure that it was informative for you.
Yeah.
Matt?
I wanted to add something about Petty Officer David. He was posthumously awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal of Heroism. And in 2013, the Coast Guard named a Sentinel-class cutter for David. And I thought that was a pretty important and impressive thing for them to do.
Yeah, I see the Fort Chaplain Award over your right shoulder there on the wall. Thanks for displaying that.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right. So that's wonderful. Well,
Good.
Matt, you have closing remarks of yourself, right?
I'm sorry.
You have something you want to share right now with your closing remarks before you leave.
Actually, the gentleman from the Fort Chaplain organization already said everything I was going to say.
All right.
He already
Great
said
story.
it. Oh,
So-
that's great.
I'm at a loss.
Doing your thing. I know that. Sorry.
Oh, how wonderful. That's so cute. Well, we're so honored to have him here. And of course, always you, my co-host. You're such a dear heart. Matt and I go back over almost 20 years, and he's been right there helping Operation Confidence. I'm on my board, and he was coming on weekly. Now he's coming on monthly because tell us what you're doing, Matt, with your writing and your poetry and where it's being shown and read. Tell us about that.
Sounds like I'm on the same boat as Nicholas. I'm putting together a book right now containing essays, a play that was previously produced, about 35 or 40 poems. Oh gosh. Music lyrics, all kinds of things. I'm putting a book called Lost and Found because a long time ago in my life, I was lost and in trouble. And through prayer of my mother, I was found. And so it covers that whole time, and mostly in the 60s and 70s. Anyway, I find that this is very, very time consuming, and there's a lot of work goes into it, and I enjoy it, going back over all these things, but it's not an easy thing to do. It's hard to do. So anyway, that's what I'm up to these days. And
so
when I get a chance, I like to join Connie every now and then and all the team and come up with something to talk about.
Well, you're going to share
Yay.
some of the poetry too, right? Or you're going to share some of your work on the show few times or anytime soon?
I could do that, probably. Probably be a poem because those essays are pretty long.
Yeah, your poem would be wonderful because you've always had beautiful poems. So we would be honored to have you read one of them, several of them for us. And I know you have to leave because Ann has her her web, what is that she does, her website, well, no, I'm sorry, web work that she has to do today?
May I ask Matt a question? Matt, was your mother still living? You said prayer and your mother
Was she still living when?
when
Oh,
he,
no, she's not. No, she's
no,
not. I wish she was.
at the time you started to find your way, was your mother living?
She actually passed on right after my life changed. But the way that it happened was very strange. I was in my ancestral home of Ireland and I was walking there, and suddenly this incredible peace came over me. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. But from that day on, I didn't do any of the reckless things I was doing before.
That's just
And I know why that happened.
mother's prayers. Ain't nothing like a mother praying. Praying
That's
mother.
right. That's right.
Well, all I know, Matt's been a saint to me, so I'm thankful to the mother for how she brought him around and how he's connected with me and some of the wonderful work that he's done for our veterans. And real quick, I know he's blushes with this, that we had an opportunity to put on a major job fair at the world-renowned sports arena on the grounds. And Matt literally got every branch of the military to march in that for that event. It was the most phenomenal. I mean, that's a part of Operation Confidence history. For us to have, I say at least about 200 veterans from all ranks to participate. I mean, it was so touching, and that was you. I would never, ever forget how he made that happen. And it came out to be the most phenomenal. I know Charles was there. It was amazing. So we have those pictures we'll show next time you come on. That's one of Operation Confidence historical moments. And if I could, I'd run through this computer to give you a virtual hug, because he's done such amazing things for our veterans, our incarcerated veterans, and our homeless veterans, and for Operation Confidence. And I just thank you so much. Very, very special.
It was my joy to do all of that, whatever I could do.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know you got to go. Give Ann my love. Not you. I mean, of course you, Ann Monica, but I'm talking about Ann, his wife.
That's all right. I'll take it.
Okay. Thank you.
By the way, I did a little homework while people were talking, and I found out the email address for the compensation for disabled veterans.
Oh, good.
So let me quick give it to you.
Please.
It's admin@veteransprograms.com. That's ADMIN @veteransprograms.com.
Okay, great. Well, Martha help us put that together, huh, Martha?
Yes. And thank you, Matt. I think that was a beautiful story you shared. And I think that's also the common thread of everyone in this group. The prayer and that, you know, the passion that we have, but the spiritual faith that we all uniquely bring. So thank you for sharing that. That was very heartfelt. Thank you.
I know you got to go. Thank you so much.
You take care.
Okay. Dr. Cash, you were supposed to come on with a prayer too, but we're gonna have to keep going because we're running out of time now. Where did you go, Brooke? It's time for you to give your statement. Woohoo!
I'm here.
Okay. It's on you,
here.
Brooke.
All righty. The Gold Star Family Dog Organization cares deeply about the men and women who serve in the U.S. Armed Forces, and their hearts go out to families who have lost a loved one during military service. Their calm, skilled Gold Star family dogs provide comfort and companionship to brighten their days. In the spirit of compassion and caring, the Gold Star Family Dog Organization offers Gold Star families and friends skilled companion dogs. These hand-picked dogs are well-trained, obedient, and affectionate, and they deliver smiles, relieve stress, and add tremendous value and companionship to you and the family. As with all their programs, they provide these beautiful dogs at no cost. If you or your family qualifies for a Gold Star Family Dog, they extend a condolence and invite you to apply for a four-legged friend. If you are legally blind, the answer is yes. For veterans with vision loss, there are many types of visual impairments, and a highly trained guide dog can help with all of them. PTSD for some, the battle is never over, and post-traumatic stress disorder is a constant presence. Their service dogs can help those who served our country face the challenges of PTSD and other disabilities, leading to a more fulfilling life. Learn more about other dog veteran programs too, including emotional support dogs, facility therapy dogs, and Gold Star Family Dogs. Also, learn about kids' companion dogs for children with vision loss too. Dogs for children and teens with significant challenges such as vision loss or the loss of a parent in the military have programs designed specifically for them. A special note, while these dogs offer exceptional benefits, please understand that a Gold Star Family Dog is not a service dog and is not trained to help with a disability or perform tasks. It is recognized only as a pet and has no public access rights. These dogs simply bring joy to your family. Dogs are their gift to you at no cost. World-class dogs, top training, comfortable accommodations, and generous alumni benefits are all part of what makes Southeastern Guide Dogs the perfect choice for people from all over the United States. If you have any questions about this program or need more information, please email admissions@guidedogs.org. That email address is, again, admissions@guidedogs.org, or call 941-729-5665 to learn more. That number 941-729-55, oh, my bad, 5665, 941-729-5665.
Where'd you go, Brooke? We don't see you. Did you know that?
It's because I'm on a different computer, and the only way I can see my notes is if I go away. I haven't figured out how to work it yet. So by next week, I'll have it figured out. That's what I get for getting a new computer.
Okay.
I'm here.
All right.
You just can't see me. Another great dog organization is Dog Walk Home, reuniting veterans and their families. When a veteran family struggling with PTSD and secondary trauma lose all hope, service dogs help them heal and imagine the impossible. Dogs Walk Home introduces veteran families in the intimacy of their homes with service dogs who are considered family members. They see how service dogs are woven tightly into the fabric of everyday life. Themes have begun to emerge as to why veterans suffer from PTSD, how secondary trauma impacts family members, and how their service dogs help them heal. An original score will be composed by Emmy-winning composer Patricia Lee Stoddard for a finished film. The project is made possible with support from the California Humanities, a nonprofit partner of National Endowment for Humanities, and has been chosen as one of the top finalists for the Roy W. Dean 2021 Spring Grant. I'm back.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We're moving right along to Ann. So on you again, Brooke. Woohoo. You want to introduce Ann for us?
I am. See, I don't get a new computer. That's the rule of today.
Okay, no problem.
Yes, Ann Montague is executive director of the Rosies movement. The Rosies are the surviving women who worked on the home front for the war effort during World War II. We encourage people to find them, learn what they did, and get Americans to work with them now. Though many of them are above 90 years old, all of them, to do projects that leave a lasting record of their legacy. Each Rosie is different, and each story has the human touch. And when you put their stories together about what they did during the war, their legacy is more than one story. Thus, their legacy is to do today what they did in World War II, which is to pull together to do highest quality work, to keep and use our freedom. Anne's guest today is Chaplain Bill Kemmer, who is Master Religious Affairs Specialist at the Army National Guard Bureau in Arlington, Virginia. It served 50 states, the District of Columbia, and 3 U.S. territories. In 2018, he retired after serving 29 years in the Army Chaplain Corps to become the executive director of the 4 Chaplains Memorial Foundation in Philadelphia. He has taught at all levels from middle school through college and as a military instructor. He embraces the mission of the 4 Chaplains Memorial Foundation, which is to tell the story of the 4 chaplains to promote interfaith cooperation and selfless service in individuals and organizations. Monsignor Kemmer believes the Chapel Museum of the 4 Chaplains, located on the Navy Yard, Philadelphia, is a truly historic monument, but the story of the 4 chaplains belongs to the world. Take it away, Anne.
Well, since Bill has already presented, I can only just add to that. But you see, I'm losing my voice. One thing that Bill did not mention is how much they have done at the Chapel of the 4 Chaplains for the Rosies. They essentially have become a model Rosie the Riveter city there in Philadelphia with the help of Bill. So now tying back into American heroes here, we are now putting together and starting to organize the different interviews that you all have done of our Rosies. And we are then going to be naming your organization, Consuela, as a model Rosie the Riveter nonprofit organization. So when we
You're going to be doing what? Something just went right by me.
okay, every year we name an individual or a set of cities as models, people who've done really exceptional work to show that they care about the women who worked on the home front. Last year, we had 6 cities: Philadelphia, Washington, Nijmegen, Netherlands, Huntington, West Virginia, Camden, South Carolina, and Brunswick, Maryland, because each one of those cities had done 5 years of work. Now this year we are looking for new cities. One's going to be Honolulu, one's going to be Youngstown, Ohio, and it goes on. One will be Salt Lake City. But instead of giving Los Angeles an award because we are not working with the mayor and others there, because you all have done such good work, what we will do is put out to the media, around the last week of August, that you are the nonprofit organization that we are honoring in place of the whole city of Los Angeles.
Thank
All
you.
we need to do is make sure that all the different interviews you've done of the Rosies we have in one place, and we want to start showing those off.
Yeah, we have them all. They're all recorded.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. Thank you. It's such an honor. And we love the Roses, as you know.
Something. And the woman that I have for week after next is named Pauline Broomfield. She's an extremely country woman, and she plays the guitar. If I can force her, she'll play the guitar and sing.
And how old is she?
I think she's 96. I'm not sure. I'd have to check it.
We want to hear her sing.
Yeah.
Maybe Charles can chime in on the background.
Yeah.
If you look at our website, our documentary film, she sings in our documentary film. One of her favorite songs is, of course, it's country now, but you picked the wrong time to lose me. Let me start again. You picked the wrong time to leave me, Lucille, with 4 hungry children and crops in the field.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. I think I heard that years ago. It's so cute. Well, we love to have her here. She's going to be on in 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Okay, tell her we look forward to for having her on the show.
She lives in such a rural area. I honestly don't know that they have Wi-Fi. So I just wrote to their mayor and asked if they would go in with a laptop and get her on Zoom, but if not, she'll be there at least in audio.
Maybe someone has a phone.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we'll get her in on audio if nothing else. Yeah, but I don't know about a cell phone. I'm just not sure it's going to work, but I'm trying.
Well, thank you so much. That was great. All right, moving right along here. Charles, it's on you.
All right. Hot news, you know.
Hot news, Charles.
All right, now check this out now. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, this is Black History Month. So, I'm going to read a little something for you, and then I'm going to play a video. As a matter of fact, why don't I just show you the whole thing? You know, it's hot news time.
Hot news time.
All right. I'm going to talk about Black Army veterans. Historical stand paves way for changes. Okay? Her name is, what is her name? Sarah Keys. Sarah Keys was a young black soldier serving at Fort Dix, New Jersey. She traveled on her way home to Washington, North Carolina on August 1st, 1952. She boarded a bus to take her first journey home after entry in the military. A ticket leads to troubles. She bought a direct ticket to make sure she had no changes. At the time, buses in the South were segregated. However, a 1946 law declared buses originating in the North did not have to follow Southern rules, for Southern laws that is. But several hours later, after pulling into Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, the bus changed drivers. The driver ordered the young Army soldiers to the back of the bus. She refused to give up her seat. The driver collected every ticket on the bus except one. The bus driver then ordered everyone off the bus. Keys went to the bus station to get a ticket. When she got to the ticket window, the lady behind the curtain in the ticket window pulled down the curtain and dimmed the lights. She said this now. Keys turned around to find a janitor, sarcastically asking if she knew where she was, a perceived reference to being in the South. I said to myself, oh God, Sarah, you're in trouble, she remembered. Keys went back outside and asked the driver again if there was a problem with a ticket. A few feet away, police asked the driver if Keys was the unruly passenger he mentioned. He confirmed she was, so the police took her into custody. She spent a night in jail. For the next 13 hours, law enforcement held Keys, placing her in a jail cell. A dirty mattress, one she described as dirtier than any you see discarded on the street, was in the cell. Rather than soil her neatly dressed army dress uniform, Keys paced the floor all night long. The jailer came the next morning to bring her in front of the chief of police. Evans received a $25 fine for disorderly conduct. Wow. To highlighting her fight. For years, her story went under the radar, even though her trip was more than 3 years before Rosa Parks would stage her bus boycott. In fact, Parks' boycott came 6 days after the Interstate Commerce Commission publicly announced the ruling in Keys' favor. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy later used the Keys case to call on the ICC to ban Jim Crow laws and interstate travel following the Freedom Rides. I'm a native and I didn't know, said Dr. Georgette Kimball, a retired 42-year educator who was part of a project team who brought her story to light. She made a difference. It's a piece of history that needs to be known. In August 2020, Keys' fight was finally brought to a tangible reminder with the closing the circle display at Sarah Keys Evans Plaza in Roanoke Rapids. The plaza uses her married name. Over a period of several years, people dug into the story and realized the impact the Army veteran had made in interstate travel. Dr. Charles McCullum Sr., a retired educator and pastor of 2 Baptist churches, said the Southern Christian Leadership Conference banquet honored Keys Evans, which helped spread the story. From there, the team worked with the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation for a public art initiative. Eastern Carolina Christian College and Seminary received a foundation grant for bringing awareness to her legacy. The plaza includes 8 chronological mural panels and 2 bronze plaques mounted on 2 semicircular brick walls. The plaza, located in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Park, shows her struggles and tells a story in a public forum. Her courage was so great, said Dr. Irvin D. Griffin Sr., President Emeritus of Halifax Community College. I don't know if I could have done it. That's why she's a trailblazer. Today, Keys Evans, she's 92, I'm sorry. Keys Evans, now 42. Why do I want to say 42? Keys Evans, now 92, lives in New York. She has not returned to Roanoke Rapids in the nearly 70 years since that night, instead joining the unveiling virtually. Despite a late ruling, she never received her money back, said Ophelia Goles Faison, who researched Keys Evans' struggle. She's still out the $25, about $250 in today's value. Despite being part of a landmark decision that changed American transport, the Army veteran says she doesn't want the story lost. I'd like to be remembered as someone who helped somebody along the way, Keys Evans said. Learn more. Take a virtual tour. Go and check out SarahKeysEvansProject.com/virtual tour. That's SarahKeysEvans.com virtual tour, and that's spelled Sarah, because there's many ways to spell Sarah. Keys, Kevin. Wait a minute. Is the name changed down there or something, or is it just me? It's KeysEvans.com. But anyway, that's part of Black history. I'm going to show you a quick video of her.
When I got to Roanoke, there was a big problem, one I had not foreseen. I put in for my first visit to my hometown in Washington, North Carolina. I purchased my ticket and boarded a bus to take my first journey home after entering the military, making sure that I had a straight-through bus. I got to Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. The driver collected a little stub of everyone that was already seated, and when he got to me, he said, I want you to get up and go to the rear of the bus. And I told him I was comfortable seated where I was. He didn't say anything. He just kept on with his business, collecting the tickets. So he came back to the front, and as he passed the two-seater, I'm by the window, and a Marine on temporary duty had been on temporary duty from Fort Dix. I reached out with my ticket, and he said, I'm not taking your ticket, and he kept straight to the door. He got off the bus and came back in about 15 minutes. And he said, I want everyone on this bus to get off except that woman that refused to move to the rear. She can stay here until this bus moves out, but it's not going anyplace tonight. It's sort of like a shock that I just hear something that I'm understanding what the man is saying, but I can't stay on this bus by myself. And when I entered the bus station, I proceeded to the ticket window, and when I got to the ticket window, the lady behind the ticket window, she pulled the curtain down and dimmed the lights. It's sort of like in a movie, When she did that, I turned around, and there was a tall guy pushing a broom, and he said to me, Miss, don't you know where you are? I said to myself, oh God, Sarah, you are in trouble. I went back out to the line, and I said to the driver again, is something wrong with my ticket? He said, no, but you are not riding this bus tonight. And the policeman was standing about 5 feet away, and they said to the driver, is this the one? The driver said, yes. So one got on one side, one on the other side. He really didn't manhandle me like most people really think, But it was all like in a movie that night, one that probably most people had never seen before, with this occurring, this woman, these policemen, that driver. So they locked me up for sure. Took me to this place, a couple of windows, and with bars on the windows, and a sink in the corner with a stool, and a mattress on the floor that was dirtier than any that you see discarded in the street. And I said to myself, I can't touch that. I can't lie down or sit down. And I wouldn't even wash my hands in the sink. So I paced the floor all night. And when you travel in dress uniform, meaning your heels, at least 1.5 inch heel. So I paced the floor all night. And I cried and I prayed. I asked God to help me. It was sort of like, what is happening to me? What is happening? What am I going to do? What are you going to say to your family? You were in jail. I sort of know how I got there, but I don't belong here. Why would I come to jail for the steps and moves that I've just made up to here? So all night I'm pacing the floor, walking and pacing and crying, walking and pacing and crying. The jailer came the next morning, took me before the chief of police, and the chief of police said, "Is that a uniform you're wearing?" I said, "You mean to tell me you don't know the color of the United States Army uniform?" So he said to me, "That's why you spent the night in jail, because you're too damn smart." All the disparaging or things that I've seen happen in life, the mistreatment of people that I've seen. But I'd like to be remembered as someone who helped somebody along the way.
That was touching. Wow.
Touching.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes. And now, my second part of Black History is I'm going to talk about the last week I was at the Aquarium of the Pacific, and I did I did my part of the show from there. It's busy, but at the end of this month, my band and I per se will be playing at the Aquarium again, and we've been playing there for at least 10 years. So
can you tell us what last week was about? What was the name of that event?
Last week was Festival of Human Abilities, and basically it's people who are disabled or have some sort of disability, whether they're blind. I mean, they have a guy who is blind. He plays guitar like nobody ever heard before. He wasn't there this week. Unfortunately this year, because of the pandemic, lots and lots of organizations didn't bring their people, and generally for the human abilities, there is no charge. If you're disabled and you and one caregiver can come in for free, and I would say it was probably 25% of the people that's normally in there, because there are a lot of organizations that bring their people, bus loads and cars are full of, so you see a lot of wheelchairs, people with canes. I mean, just, you see a lot of, blind people. It was 25%, and most of the people there were probably for the, ones that had, a membership. But it was okay, but they still have some disabled people doing their thing. It's entertaining and all, but it was nothing like it usually is. This coming at the end of the month, this is the African American Festival, and so I happen to qualify for both of them. So and I bring my band, and we do a Saturday and a Sunday. Sometimes we do one day, but this time we do both. We've done events for the aquarium, just when they had events during the year, we've done things for. But it's so let me see here real quick. The aquarium is busy, and I'll show you some pictures from the past. Let's see here real quick. This was I don't know how long ago this was, but these are some of the old band members. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And here we are. Generally we play in front of the big tank here at the end of the tail of the whale, and that's a small one. And there's a walkway up just above where we play, so you can see myself and Herman are the co-leaders of the band, and then all our guys, and they're behind us there, and just another angle. We it's a busy and it's a fun event, and we've been doing this for at least 10 years, and that's something that you ought to be part of. If you get a chance, go down to the Aquarium of the Pacific on February 20, March, I think it was 28th and 29th. It's the last weekend. And if you need tickets, don't worry about trying to buy any. Just let me know, because they give me a whole handful, and I can get you in, a family or whatever you want to get in. Come see me. If you're a Operation Confidence listener and you want to get in touch with us. We'll make it happen for you.
All right. Well, we're winding down now. But I want everyone to know, Charles, you're going to tell them next week we won't be on the show because of Super Bowl.
We're taking off because
go Rams.
Too many people want to see the Super Bowl, and if this was Super Sunday, we'd be trying to close out while the game is going, and people want to be at the game. They want to see the game. They want to see the commercials. They want to see the pre-show. They want to see the after, all this other stuff. So rather than us trying to, come back next week with and try to rush the scene, we're going to take the week off.
This is our first time in over a year. So.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
May I ask a question, Charles? When do you close down for the summer at the aquarium? Are you there through the summer?
Oh, they're open all the time.
Year round.
Your performance, I'm saying. When do you
our performance is only those 2 weekends.
I see.
January and February, every year we've been doing that for at least 10 years.
So we're looking for a place to bring in the Rosies and Operation Confidence in Los Angeles somewhere around the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday of Labor Day. So if you can think of a place, we have at least 2 Rosies who can come, at least at this point, they're able to.
Okay. Well, I'm sure, if that would, and that would be a great place to host. I could talk to the aquarium people. Of course I have.
That would be great. It's right near the Queen Mary too.
Yes.
Really? And then the other thing is we could show the different segments from the video that you're making here, Consuela.
Yeah, right. We have them all. We just have to put them in order.
You just have to organize them, yeah.
Yes, okay. And on that weekend, the aquarium is the host of the event. But at the end of the month, the aquarium will host its 20th annual African American Festival, and they will also announce and celebrate the recipients of their 2022 African American Scholar Program. Yes.
That's going to be great. All right. Take it away, Brooke. We're closing down now, and then followed by Martha and me with closing remarks.
All right. I'm going to disappear for a minute.
Yeah, right.
I'd like to remind our listeners about our amazing advertisement rates. We have 20 and 30-second advertisement slots available. Please email info@operationconfidence.org for more information, and visit Operation Confidence's website at www.operationconfidence.org. Our resource page for some amazing resources. That email again is info@operationconfidence.org. I'd also like to inform our viewers and radio listeners about Amazon Smile. When making your next purchase on Amazon, please go to Amazon Smile and type in Operation Confidence in the Choose Your Organization donation box. Amazon will make a small donation to Operation Confidence. Also, to get involved in Operation Confidence Tiny Houses project, visit our website and send us a message on how you'd like to be involved.
So on you, Martha.
Thank you, Brooke. To our viewers and listeners, we'd like to inform you about a couple of other in-house things that we have going on with Operation Confidence, one of which includes our positive redirection team. And the positive redirection team is just looking for a group of male and female veterans who can be mentors, having overcome some of the same challenges or certain situations that today's veterans are facing. Personally, that lived experience to share and kind of give back to other veterans who are kind of in need. So we're looking for some folks that might be interested in joining our efforts on the positive redirection team. So I don't know if maybe Nicholas, who we heard today, is an example of a person who might be able to share, some time with us as we look to grow this team. And then also there is another opportunity for female veterans with our group Operation Confidence's Combat Boots and Lace Women's Veterans Group. And we're looking specifically as we're kind of moving forward in our tiny homes project to look for, just suggestions, ideas, tips, pointers, techniques, all that good stuff to help shape a support program that we're going to put in place for women. And that could include, creative arts, writing, all of that great stuff to help as we look to support the healing and the health and well-being of our female veterans. So to get involved, you can either email info@operationconfidence.org. Once again, that email address, info@operationconfidence.org, or you can email me directly at martha@operationconfidence.org. Once again, martha@operationconfidence.org.
Okay. And we're closing out now. And now we always want to remind our listeners that our goal for the show is to raise awareness about Operation Confidence's mission, which is to provide stable housing with a wide range of supportive services for our veterans, especially those who are disabled. And that would include employment opportunities as well. So to get involved with our grassroots effort, please email us at info@operationconfidence.org. And don't forget to visit our website at www.operationconfidence.org. So we're going to close out, and we want to please remind our viewers to visit us on our American Invisible Heroes YouTube page and subscribe. We need all the subscribers we can get. So don't forget, we're also on YouTube as well as Facebook Live. But go to our YouTube page, that's Operation Confidence, Americans Invisible Heroes, and subscribe to our show. Okay, thank you. And we're closing out now. It's on you, Charles, and we're going to say goodbye. There we go. That's our sign off. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Operation Confidence is a grassroots nonprofit. The organization's mission is to provide stable housing for veterans who have experienced homelessness, as well as providing a wide range of supportive services. To help accomplish our goal, a successful landowner has donated land for the project, a world-renowned architect has offered to design the houses, and construction classes from the local community colleges will take part in building the houses. Your support and donations are needed. To get involved, please visit our website at www.operationconfidence.org or email info@operationconfidence.com.
Okay. Bye-bye. See you next week. See you the week after.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Stay safe.